So the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Rangers. So the whole thing's come up again. Apparently the writer or whoever was like, oh yeah, the stereotypes were a mistake, and basically they were saying it's like we weren't thinking about that at the time. Now it would have been not great, but it's like I can imagine it's like, hey, you want to know what'd be really great? Let's make the Pink Ranger a really, preppy, kind of real feminine kind of girl. Let's make the Black Ranger a black guy, and look at the Yellow Ranger. Okay, guys, you ready for this? Get this. The Yellow Ranger is going to be Asian. For people who don't know, technically it's really not true because the first Yellow Ranger, her name was Audrey Dubois. She was originally the Yellow Ranger, and she wasn't Asian. I think she was Hispanics. Yep. I don't know what kind. Latina. But Thuy Trang was the second one after Audrey left because there was something like a contract deal, like she wanted more money, and so she left, and Thuy Trang came on as the Yellow Ranger and stayed the Yellow Ranger until she ultimately left as well. And then she unfortunately died in, I believe, a car accident. Was it 2001? I think it was. But Black Power Ranger controversy ignites Hollywood media spin, but the original actor isn't having it. Now, Walter Jones, he's a really cool dude. Like, he is, like, this dude embodies everything that a Power Ranger is supposed to be. It's like when you grow up and you see these heroes and then you meet them in real life and turns out the heroes are actually the villains. No, this dude is genuinely a good dude. He is genuinely a good freaking dude. And people kind of praise this guy. He's never seen himself as a victim. He's never, he likes the fact that he got to play kind of like the first black superhero on TV. While people like Spawn and Blade and all those kinds of heroes existed in comics, we didn't really have any TV shows where, or live action rather, show of any kind where there was a black superhero, which was really cool. It was a very diverse group of people, but also for people who don't know, he was missing a finger. He was missing a middle finger on his left hand. Just for people who didn't know that. The mainstream media has once again latched on to a retro TV moment and turned into something it was never meant to be. This time, the target was, it's not the first time. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, specifically the casting decisions made over 30 years ago, because people are always looking for something to be offended about. According to headlines making the rounds this week, the show's head writer, Tony Oliver, confessed that it was a mistake to cast a black actor as the Black Ranger and an Asian actress as the Yellow Ranger. Again, Audrey Dubois wasn't Asian. She was the original. And actually, I think the pilot is still on. You can find it online with Audrey as... hang on. I think it is. Yeah, here's the original. And a lot has changed. Like you could see... Okay, so she was a legitimate like martial artist. Then you have like Bulk and Skull around here. You got Bulk and Skull right here. You can see that their characters, like the design, like their clothes and all that changed dramatically. See ya. Actually, that could never actually happen. We got Rita coming out. Here's Alpha. And this was Zordon. I know. This was Zordon. Rangers. 5 teenagers with attitude. Immediately.
Multifunctional automaton.
Whoa. Welcome, humans.
God, that's so creepy. I'm so glad they changed it. Imagine having to stare at that every episode.
Whoa.
What'd he say?
Said
Yeah, see, she clearly not Asian. Like I said, I think she's Latina of some kind. I don't know where exactly from, but or she might be Italian. I don't know. But yeah, Miss Dubois. She was the original. But yeah, a mistake. Oliver's comments come from the new investigation Discovery series, Hollywood Demons, where he claims none of us were thinking stereotypes. Pretty much. And we didn't realize the potential for controversy until an assistant pointed it out much later. It was such a mistake, he added, sparking an avalanche of editorial takes, social media chatter, and surface-level hot takes. What most of these outlets conveniently left out, however, is the perspective of the actual actor at the center of this so-called controversy, Walter Emmanuel Jones, the original Black Ranger himself. Posting on Instagram, Jones addressed their new media focus head-on. So this is what he wrote. Incredible how many media outlets picked this up. However, while some choose to seek out the negative, I've always believed in focusing on the positive. I understand the impulse to address what might be seen as culturally insensitive, but calling it a mistake would dismiss the impact it had on countless people around the world who found inspiration and representation in TV's first black superhero. Morphin into none other than the Black Power Ranger. It wasn't a mistake. It was a milestone. It was an honor. So he's never seen himself as a victim. In one statement, Jones managed to dismantle the entire narrative being pushed. Far from feeling misrepresented or sidelined, he viewed his role as historic, and he's right. For a generation of kids, Zach Taylor wasn't just a Ranger. He was the Ranger. He was the swagger, the energy, the cool factor. Yeah. Yeah. Not to mention he had the axe, the power axe. So, axes are awesome. I mean, far better than, say, the sword was pretty cool. But when it came to all the weapons, whether it be in the games or whatever, I always pick Zach. Just because the axe was amazing. Even in the even in the documentary, old camcorder footage shows Jones joking on set. My name's Walter Jones. I play Zach. I'm black, and I play the Back Ranger. Go figure. It was a self-aware, lighthearted, and absolutely not a moment of outrage. It was a cast having fun while making something memorable. There's also matter of Trini Kwan, the Yellow Power Ranger on the show. Yeah, right here. They even bring up Audrey Dubois. But it's worth noting that the original actress cast as the Yellow Ranger, Audrey Dubois, was not Asian. Exactly. People were like, oh, there's racial stereotypes. The original one wasn't Asian. She wasn't Asian. She was originally cast for the pilot, but left over a contract dispute. The role was then recast with Thuy Trang, a Vietnamese American actress who was later edited into the existing footage. In short, the cast of an American actress wasn't planned. It happened as a result of behind-the-scenes changes. Trang embodied the peaceful conscience of the group. I mean, and when you hear Walter talk about her, that's pretty much exactly what he says. She was like the balance of the group, not just in the group as, as the actors and as friends, but in like the group of the Rangers. She was like that calming peace. And whenever he talks about her, it's just nothing but good things and just good memories of her, because he's like, she was just a genuinely sweet, beautiful person. Which is what the team was seeking, not a demographic checkbox. It's also important to remember that Thuy Trang, 2001, I was right. God, I remember hearing about that. I was like, what? Though she isn't here to speak on the current discussion, her legacy as Trini Kwan continues to inspire. Her portrayal gave many young viewers, especially Asian girls, a rare action hero they could see themselves in. Now, this was actual representation, not just like, oh yeah, we're gonna have Zack, and his entire thing is, get this, he's black. Well, what about his personality? What do you mean? He's black. No, they gave him personality. He was a very good written character. That's why people are so fond of him. Trini was an amazing character. They weren't just stereotypes inserted in there for the sake of diversity, equity, inclusion. This was how you wrote, diverse characters back in the day. They can't do this anymore. They can't do this anymore. Her contribution remains as one of the most beloved in Power Rangers history, despite the modern Hollywood access media attempting to spin it as problematic. While Tony Oliver now looks back on his decision through a different lens, the context matters. Neither he or co-stars Shuki Levy were coming from a US-centric worldview at the time. Levy, who grew up in Israel, previously told Complex, being a black person is like being any kind of color. It's not something we talked about all the time. It wasn't a big issue. Exactly. Again, like, as funny as it would be, like, hey guys, you want to be really great? Let's make the Black Ranger black. And get this, we're going to make the Yellow Ranger Asian. No. Considering that Audrey Dubois was the original Yellow Ranger, that kind of smashes that whole idea that they purposely did it. It's like the Morgan Freeman quote. It's like, well, how do we stop racism? Beat racism? He's like, stop talking about it. We didn't see them as, oh, it's a black man playing the Black Ranger. No, we saw them as awesome teenagers with attitude. We saw them as heroes. We saw them as badass. We didn't see them as black and white and Asian and this and that. We saw them as Rangers. So unfortunately, nuance doesn't trend, and that's exactly what's missing in the rush of rewrite pop culture history. Instead of celebrating cultural touchstone that was meant the world to millions of kids, the media chose to drag the conversation into modern buzzword territory. Thankfully, Walter Jones didn't let that narrative stand. He reminded everyone that Power Rangers gave kids a world, where heroes didn't all look the same, and that was the point. Exactly. Representation is what made them great. They were good written characters. They all had their own stories that, from the time they started. Like Trini, simple thing like being afraid of heights. But then Billy was in trouble and she had to take, push that fear aside and help rescue him. They all had moments where they had to overcome their own fears and this and that, where they grew as characters, and that is what made them amazing. That is something that people today cannot do. Instead, you have a black character and the whole thing is they're black. If you have a gay character, the whole thing is that they're gay. They don't have any personality. They have nothing to relate to. They have no nuance. They have no character development. This was representation. This was diversity. This was inclusion. This is what we're talking about when we are calling out the crap now. This is what we want. I don't care if they're black, white, straight, bi, gay, whatever. This is what we want. Good representation. Representation wasn't a checkbox. It was natural, earned, and impactful. Kudos to Walter Jones. He didn't succumb to victimhood. He actually embraced the role he played. Very impressive. He is. Yeah. I mean, apart from Tommy, Zack was my favorite. Most people would probably say, well, I don't know anyone who is like a huge Billy fan. But like Jason, obviously being the leader at the time. but mine was Tommy and Zach, just because they were the coolest. You know, Tommy had that really rough kind of, kind of that edgy sort of feel to him, and he also had a great character arc. But then Zach had that, like they said, that swagger to him. He had his own style of fighting. And plus, like I said, the axe. Come on. It's an axe. Better than daggers, better than a lance or a bow. I mean, axe. Come on. Come on. And it like turns into a gun. I mean, come on. But, but he's a guy who sees this as an opportunity to be like, no, there was no racial or whatever. It was, the cast was the cast, and I feel like what we did was amazing, for representation, for influencing and inspiring so many people around the world. That's the whole point. But of course, in modern day, we got to bring up race in everything.
Oh my God, they were so, they made the Black Ranger black and the Yellow Ranger,
And they're like, okay, what's your point? It's like, I knew I was a Black Ranger and I was also a black man. I didn't care. I didn't care. They try to make it seem like all black people are victims or that they want to be victims. That's not the case. This man clearly does not want to be a victim. Even though it wasn't David Yost, dude he was gay. And I don't know. I know it wasn't them who was doing it, because he said they were all cool with him, but like other people on set would make fun of him and harass him for being gay. But he never saw himself as a victim. He's not gonna be like, oh my God, my life was terrible because I was gay. No, he's moved past it. He's grown. He's learned. I mean, leave it to modern day society to look back and be like, oh, and this was problematic. No, it's only problematic because you're making it problematic. But this was what representation actually was. This right here. Her. Good written characters that people can actually relate to, who weren't just there to check a box. So modern day, maybe you need to go back and look at some of the characters from the 90s and learn from that, because these are the characters we want. But no, despite me saying that, I'm still phobus and ism somehow. Somehow I still hate black people or something. I don't know. Because people are stupid. And instead of hearing what I have to say, they're just looking for a reason to be outraged and to start shouting names at people. So, I have a better chance of winning a debate with a freaking brick wall. But anyway, that's going to do for me. You guys know the drill. I'll see you guys later. Bye, guys.